Hey, Jen, how are you?
Hi, Andrew. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Ready to talk about something controversial today?
Always.
Always. Yeah, right. So, first of all, we put out a poll a couple weeks ago on email gurus on LinkedIn. And if you're not a part of email gurus, certainly I encourage you guys to go out and join the group. Lots of fantastic people in there. And the poll that we put out was centered around, do you think the average subscriber cares about fonts, whether it's in their emails or landing pages or preference centers? And interesting, before we sort of talk about what those results were, what I think is really interesting is that there were a couple of comments that I wanted to highlight. And then I'm going to reveal the results. And I'm going to tell you what my opinion is. And then I'd love to kind of hear what some of your pickings of people comments. And, thank you first of all, thank you to everybody that participated. We had over 18,000 impressions. We had 450 votes on this, which I think is interesting. One comment came from Pauline. I hope I said that right. She said, I think they do care. I think it's stuff like consistent branding and elements. And Mark made another comment that said, so long as the text is easy to read, not really, right? He doesn't believe that. And one final comment that I kind of drew out was from a person by the name of Jill Roberts. She's like, so long as the font is consistent, right? So whether it's a singular piece of content or something that has to do with your website, she truly feels that the subscriber really doesn't care. And so those are three comments that kind of stood out to me. Where I stand on this is a very hard no. I really truly feel is that the average subscriber in most situations, I'm going to use the word most, really don't care whether it's Helvetica or Arial or any one of these other fonts, so long as the font is not goofy, right? So long as you're right, it is easy to read and it does match the brand. I think we as marketers care, and I think we should care, but I don't think that the average subscribers care. But I'm curious, Jen, what do you thought? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I pulled out a couple comments too, and I saw one from Oscar who talked a little bit about if consumers can tell if something is ugly or off, and if you have a premium brand, that it better match. And so consumers don't really care, but they can tell when something's off. And then Jane Rex kind of back that up too, because she was talking about like a luxury retail brand, and it's all about your audience. And I do think that some audiences will be able to tell when you're not kind of following your brand. So I think that's important. I will say, go ahead.
What about you? No, go.
For me, I think for me, I come from a production perspective. I don't think that, number one, when you're building an email, that font should even be part of the discussion at all. Like, I think that should be a part of templating. I think it should always align with your brand, but obviously I'm a marketer, so I live in that world. Right. But I just think that that's one of those things that should never have to be thought about in an email. They should always align, because why are you changing or picking a different font in the middle of an email production, right? That's not the time to do that.
But you came to me when we were talking about this before. You came to me with an example of a company called Fly by Jing, and you'll see it here on the screen in just a second. And I'm curious as to, this is a really polarizing sort of look, right? And I'm curious why you brought this to me, because I've got some thoughts on it as well.
Okay, sure. So I would, number one, like to thank Grace Morales for showing me this brand or bringing this brand to me, because she's on Email Geeks, and I love them, and I'm embarrassed to say how much I've spent having them ship me their products across the country. But, I thought this was a really great example of how their fonts align perfectly, where the brand on the website and the email are exactly the same. And it needs to be, but I love how flamboyant and the colors are, but their fonts are always consistent.
Right. And I'm going to say, when you see these things, it's really the reds and the yellows and the greens and the purples, and then how everything sort of contrasts, right? I'm certainly not an email designer, never have been, never will be. I can tear this thing apart, or I could say it's the best thing in the world, but until I actually know the results, if it works for them, it works for me, right? I also love the simplistic views of emails, right? The blacks and whites, some open white space. But they make it work. They make it work for
They
their
make
brand.
it work. I love it.
Make it work. And so again, when we start thinking about this whole thing around, do people care? I mean, hopefully and clearly they might have done some testing, especially on their creative itself. So, but this is kind of spills in to what our next poll is going to be. We start talking about process, right? Whether it's people, planning, process, things of that nature. And we're going to put a poll out there very, very soon that talks about this, and we certainly encourage everybody to do it. But tell us the results. Jen, what did the people come back and say? Do they really think that people care about it? What were the actual results?
52% of subscribers said that they don't think that that the user or the recipient actually cares about font, which is a little more than half. Yeah. But then, how many of us on Email Gurus are not marketers?
Right. Totally. I found it interesting. It was 52, 42 yes. And then there was a 6% in there that don't care. So I'm assuming that these are people that probably answered the question like, I don't care, right? Like, I don't care. So maybe the was skewed a little bit. So look, our next poll is going to be very interesting. We talk about, and we've put a couple polls out to Email Gurus now, you and I, and we talked about overall process. And I think we've narrowed it down to planning, people, process, technology, or maybe that there's something else. And then we're going to break that sort of poll down in our next email challenges video. Any parting thoughts before we go, other than please vote for our next poll, or what do you think?
Oh, we definitely need you to vote for our next poll and have fun with us and join us and give us your comments on what you think, or make fun of us. I don't care.
Make fun of us. Tell us, tell me you hate the Chicago Bears, or my head's too round, or whatever. Like we can take it, right? We're big people. But thank you everybody for participating, and thank you Email Gurus for allowing us to put a poll out there like this.
Awesome.
Until next time, everybody.